Hey, what is up everyone? Welcome back to another episode of In Defense of, and today we're going to be continuing off with Sakura Haruno. Last time we actually talked about Sakura in part 1 of Naruto, being the entire OG series. Now, one thing I actually wanted to mention, which I don't think I mentioned in the previous video, was that Sakura actually already had trained with Tsunade for a while. Like, I don't know how long to be specific, but she was already getting started with her medical training. So with that being said, Sakura is already ahead of Hinata and Ino by a small margin, given that both Ino and Hinata were medical ninjas during Shippuden. However, now let's actually move on to Shippuden. Hopefully I can get this done within one video. If I can't, then that's no problem. I could easily move on to part 3 as well and continue on. Keep in mind that Sakura does have a lot more involvement over Sasuke in this particular case, so it is going to be hard to cram it all in to just one video like that. So we'll just see how we go, and if time goes well for us, then that'd be great. So let's begin with the very first arc. So essentially Naruto comes back to the village. Sakura and Naruto are now teamed up again, and they both have to do the bell test against Kakashi. We actually get to see a bit of demonstration towards what Sakura can actually do now. This time she was able to see the genjutsu that originally worked on her back in the OG series, the first bell test that they did, but this time she easily was able to get out of it. Secondly, she also has monstrous strength, which is something that is, well, let's just say, that was something new that we all saw here, because in the original series, while Sakura was punching Naruto a lot, she wasn't necessarily exhibiting any actual real strength in this particular scenario. But the fact that she's actually trained with Tsunade during the 3 years, for her to actually have that kind of strength, it's definitely quite amazing. Now, of course, we have the subplot going on, or rather the actual main plot going on in this case, and that is Gaara gets kidnapped, Kankuro goes out and pursues Sasori and Deidara and gets into a fight. Kankuro gets up poisoned. The entire sand village, not even Elder Chiyo, was able to actually save Kankuro, and the only person who could make it in time was a leaf ninja who was actually coming over, and that happened to be Sakura, who was the only one who was actually capable. Keep in mind, it's very amazing as well, because you have to keep in mind that Sakura was able to do something that the entire sand village and also Granny Chiyo wasn't capable of doing. And you have to keep in mind that Granny Chiyo studied poisons for a very long time. She was able to come up with antidotes to Hanzo's poisons. So the fact that she couldn't even come up with a poison towards Sasori's poison, and Sakura was able to actually do so, that's definitely a really amazing thing, especially for a Chunin. Now, of course, what's amazing is that Sakura was actually able to also use some of the additional resources, or the remaining resources, to make 2 doses which they were able to actually bring out to the mission, which would actually come in very handy later on, which we'll get to. However, we get to the actual pursuit and they eventually catch up to Sasori and Deidara. The team gets split up and Sakura and Granny Chiyo are now left to fight Sasori. Now in this case, you guys might argue, well, yeah, you're right, Granny Chiyo knows Sasori, how he fights and the weaknesses, but you have to keep in mind that Sasori left the village 20 years ago, so you can definitely see that there's a huge significant difference here in terms of what they're actually capable of now, because Granny Chiyo only knew Sasori during that time, during the 20 years ago. But in this particular scenario, Sasori had plenty of time to improve in the actual Akatsuki alone, hunting different Jinchuriki, and you have to keep in mind that Sasori was even capable of killing off the 3rd Kazekage. That's a feat that is quite amazing, considering the 3rd Kazekage was also hailed as the strongest Kazekage among all Kazekage. But with that being said, Sakura definitely stepped up to the game here, because not only was she a medical ninja, just like Granny Chiyo, but she was also able to act and serve kind of like as a human puppet to Granny Chiyo. So with Granny Chiyo using a regular puppet, it wouldn't work as effectively, because you have to consider this. If a regular puppet were to fight and there was something coming from a blind spot, Granny Chiyo wouldn't be able to defend that. However, In the puppet's view, which in this case Granny Chia is using Sakura, it is a possibility that Sakura could actually fend for herself as well, and if she needed to, she could move on her own. She didn't always have to rely on Granny Chia actually doing the puppetry for her to actually fight on her own. Now, don't take away the credit from Sakura nor Granny Chia, because keep in mind, if it were a one-on-one fight, Sasori would easily win against any of them, but it's because they were able to team up despite being in different villages, and you have to keep in mind how stubborn at this point Granny Chia was as well to work with the leaf, but you know, we'll get to that later, of course. In this case, I do like the teamwork between Granny Chia and Sakura. And also, Sakura was also very important in this particular scenario as well, being able to break the Hiroko puppet and also destroy the third Kazekage puppet. And yet, keep in mind, when the third Kazekage puppet was actually out, there was the Iron Sand to deal with. Granny Chia has no strength whatsoever in terms of actually just punching away all those big blocks of Iron Sand. But in this case, Sakura was actually the best choice in this particular scenario to take on that particular, I guess, jutsu. So it's really amazing to see that how far Sakura has actually gone. Keep in mind that in the OG series, Itachi had no trouble whatsoever. He didn't even break a sweat, and he took down Kakashi like it was nothing. And we see now that Sakura is actually able to go and put up quite a fight against Sasori. Now, of course, it's different circumstances, and power scaling is not really the greatest thing to go about in this particular situation, but either way, it is still something that you have to give Sakura some credit for. What's even more amazing is after the fight actually ends, Sakura was also able to get some information about Orochimaru, which is great because it actually progresses the story into the next arc. Meaning, without this particular information, we wouldn't be able to get into the Tenchi Bridge arc. And yes, admittedly, the Tenchi Bridge arc, Sakura didn't really do anything, but if you really look at it at a broader point of view, both Yamato and Sai didn't really do anything as well. I mean, it was mainly Naruto rampaging and fighting against Orochimaru, which was probably one of the biggest highlights in that. But at the same time, we also get to see Sasuke for the first time. He just completely wrecked Team 7, so there's not much to really say there. So now let's move on a bit ahead into the next arc. Now, I'm not going to be including fillers here, so this is just going to be all canon, so we should be able to get through this very quickly. The next arc, we basically have Hiran and Kakuzu actually coming over hunting the Jinchuriki, and in this case Asuma ends up dying. It's mainly Shikamaru's arc, so he fights and he does his own thing. Team 7 eventually comes in, of course, and Naruto takes on Kakuzu and beats him. Sakura and Sai is sent to, I guess, team up with Shikamaru, but of course we already know Shikamaru ends up winning, so again, we don't really get to see anything. I mean, there's not much to really say about this. It's just that the arc itself honestly was just all focused on Naruto and Shikamaru, and even Kakashi just had a really small part into it. So now we move on to the next arc, which I think this is where it really gets exciting, because in this particular arc, we have Sasuke actually killing off Orochimaru and now forming Taka, or Hebi in this particular situation, in pursuit of Itachi, taking a more active role towards his goal. The Leaf Village finds out about this and they figure out, hey, to get to Sasuke, why not just go for the actual target of Sasuke, Itachi? So the Leaf Village forms their own teams. Team 7 and Team 8 kind of co-joins together and heads off to find him. Of course, they're thwarted by Tobi, so it's kind of unfortunate. Tobi gets the Sasuke first, Sasuke joins the Akatsuki, and we move on to the next arc. Sasuke actually captures B, at least a clone of it, but you know what, the Cloud Village, they kind of already find out, and they, I guess, misled into this whole belief that the Eight Tails were actually captured, or B is actually captured, and so they order for a summit to actually occur. Now keep in mind, during this time, Pain invades the village, And don't discredit Sakura in this particular scenario, because keep in mind that without her, the hospital would have no order whatsoever. She was actually the one who gave order to the whole hospital itself, and she healed a bunch of people. She was pretty much a second in command right behind Tsunade in this particular situation. And given that Tsunade was the Hokage, technically Sakura is the top medical ninja at that particular point. You guys could easily say that, oh, but the village was eventually destroyed by pain anyway, so it doesn't matter. Well, you have to keep in mind that regardless of whether or not pain destroyed the village or not, Sakura still was a contributing factor in actually healing people. And a lot of people say that Sakura doesn't do anything. She's a medical ninja. Medical ninjas typically will do things in the background off screen. I mean, what is there to really see when it comes to a medical ninja actually healing someone? I mean, what's there to actually see for a doctor in our real world actually saving someone's lives? It's not something that we would actually want to watch because it's really uneventful. But we are still grateful for what medical ninjas and in our world, doctors are actually doing for us. But of course, the Leaf Village finds out about this news and they are devastated. So Naruto goes finds the Raikage to actually plead for Sasuke. Meanwhile, Sakura has her own plan. She doesn't want Naruto actually going to his death, I guess, because of the fact that he's really desperate to save Sasuke in this particular situation. So Sakura comes up with this lie that she loves Naruto and that Naruto doesn't have to go after Sasuke anymore. Now, a lot of people actually consider this strike one for Sakura in the sense that, well, in this particular situation, she is coming out with this lie that seems almost blatantly obvious, of course, and it's all in good intentions. I mean, for me, what I see is she's trying to protect Naruto in this particular situation. Regardless of how obvious this lie kind of seems to you, you have to keep in mind that it's probably the intention of Kishimoto himself to make it obvious for us to actually be able to figure it out. Do you really think that Kishimoto would want to make it that difficult to figure out? I mean, if he made it really believable, like Itachi actually lying his way through and pretending to be the villain, I mean, that would really confuse us. So I think it was within Kishimoto's intention to make it really obvious that Sakura was lying in this particular scenario. So I honestly can't really blame her in this situation, and you guys shouldn't as well. But of course, we skip through the summit, Sasuke kills off Danzo and Team 7 kind of gets there. Well, actually Sakura gets there first. And what happens is she tries to kill Sasuke. Unfortunately, it's not successful. And well, think about this for a second. Let's say one of your loved ones or one of your friends actually turns out to be a villain. And you're actually deciding, hey, I gotta finish this job. I gotta, well, you know, do it myself, right? Kill off your own friend for the sake of the world. Would you be able to do it in an instant? I think you would also be hesitating as well. It goes to show how strong the bonds are between Team 7, and the whole show of Naruto in general has been emphasizing the whole bonds between friends and everything like that. So seeing this, it's, if anything, it's perpetuating the theme of bonds. So I can't really blame them for this particular situation. Naruto saved Sakura, but you know what, so what? I mean, turns out Sakura saves Naruto a lot more in the series than Naruto does. Now, of course, the talk doesn't go well and Sasuke has to go because he's pretty much blind at this point, so he has to get new eyes. However, that being said, news is spread and now a war is about to begin. So at this point, everyone's pretty much preparing for the war, and Sakura has been assigned to the medical unit. But at the same time, she also happens to also be assigned to Kakashi's platoon as well, which it was kind of weird. I guess it was like, I guess within the third unit, which was Kakashi's unit during the war, I guess there was like this infantry unit where they actually fought more, and then there was like this back medical unit where Sakura was actually there. But with that being said, I don't want to make this video too long. I'm pretty sure the war is going to be really lengthy, so I don't want to keep it that way, and I'd rather just end the video and make this into a part 3. So I hope you guys actually enjoyed this video. Definitely leave me your thoughts about this in the comments down below. It really does help actually spread the video more, and don't forget to like and subscribe as well. Don't forget to share this video for more people to actually see. And of course, I hope you guys have a great day. I'll see you next time.